Please give your attention because what is about to be expressed is not merely ordinary information, it is something vital for survival. There are individuals in this world who go beyond simply disliking you. They actively wish for your downfall. Some of them don't even want you to exist in their space. If you are not aware, if you overlook the warning signs, you may walk straight into their carefully arranged traps with a calm smile on your face, while they quietly prepare to strike from behind. This is not about becoming paranoid. This is basic human psychology. Narcissists, especially those with deeply rooted issues, function with a level of hostility and calculation that most genuinely kind people cannot even imagine. The troubling reality is that your goodness is exactly what makes you vulnerable. So now we look closely at hidden signals, small indicators that reveal when a narcissist does not simply feel resentment toward you, but genuinely seeks your ruin. Recognizing these patterns can help you protect yourself, possibly even preserve your mental, social, and sometimes physical safety, because the risk is very real. They turn your strengths into weapons against you. This is one of the most disturbing aspects of how narcissists manipulate others. It is so subtle that many people fail to recognize it until much later. Think about this carefully. The qualities that make you admirable, the very traits that define your strength, your kindness, your loyalty, your empathy, your willingness to forgive, your desire to believe in others, these are exactly what a narcissist identifies, targets, and then exploits. This is never accidental. It is deliberate, calculated, almost instinctive, like a predator tracking its prey. They can sense your nature the way a shark detects blood in water. When you show kindness, they lean into it, not with gratitude, but with entitlement. You may find yourself agreeing to things you would normally refuse because your kindness has been twisted into a restraint around you. When you are loyal, they test that loyalty repeatedly, breaking your trust again and again just to measure how far they can go before you finally walk away. Because loyalty matters to you, you hesitate. You justify their actions. You tell yourself maybe they will improve, maybe they didn't mean it, maybe the fault lies with you. They are fully aware of this, and they depend on it. If you are forgiving, they do not see it as compassion but as opportunity. They hurt you, apologize, then repeat the same behavior. Your forgiveness becomes a revolving door through which their actions continue unchecked. They may even frame it as your responsibility, suggesting that true forgiveness means letting everything go. You struggle internally because you believe in giving chances, sometimes too many. What you fail to see at first is that your forgiveness is no longer a gift. It has been reshaped into permission. Your empathy, the ability to understand and feel for others, becomes their playground. They exploit it by presenting themselves as victims, drawing out your compassion, and manipulating your instinct to help. They cry when it benefits them, show anger when it serves them, collapse emotionally when it suits the moment, and each time you feel compelled to rescue them. Yet when you need support, they withdraw. They deny you the same empathy they demanded. This imbalance is not accidental. It is intentional and central to their behavior. Even your desire to see the good in people becomes a weakness they use. You overlook obvious warning signs because you believe in their potential goodness. You reinterpret cruelty as stress, dishonesty as confusion, and control as concern. This is exactly where they thrive, because they know you will reshape reality to protect your beliefs. They know you will sacrifice your clarity to maintain hope. And each time you do this, their control over you grows stronger. This is the core psychological manipulation. They invert your strengths into vulnerabilities. They do not attack your weaknesses because those are easier to recognize. Instead, they slowly erode the foundation of who you are. They make you question whether kindness is naivety, whether loyalty is foolish, whether forgiveness is weakness, whether empathy is self-betrayal. Over time, you begin to distrust your own nature. You start seeing your best qualities as flaws. When that happens, you lose your sense of identity. That is how they weaken you, not through force, but by making you disarm yourself. Many people only realize this after years have passed. They look back and wonder how they allowed it to continue. The answer is harsh but clear. It continued because they were good, and that goodness was deliberately used against them by someone who understood its power, sometimes better than they did themselves. They take more satisfaction in your failures than in their own achievements. This reveals their mindset more clearly than anything else. It is not just insecurity, but deep hostility toward your existence. Most people experience envy occasionally, but healthy envy comes with awareness. If someone you know succeeds, you might feel a brief moment of jealousy, but you do not wish harm upon them. You recognize the feeling and move on. A narcissist reacts differently. Your success threatens the fragile image they have built of themselves as superior and flawless. Each of your achievements disrupts that illusion. Instead of focusing on their own progress, they invest emotional energy in your setbacks. Watch closely. When you make a mistake, their expression changes, their attention sharpens, their voice shifts. If you fail at something meaningful, they offer shallow comfort while internally taking pleasure in your situation. Their sympathy feels unnatural because it is. Beneath it, they are waiting for your downfall because it restores their sense of superiority. This is why they often engage in subtle sabotage. They do not simply wait for failure, they help create it. They introduce doubt before important decisions. They undermine your confidence before critical moments. They distract, confuse, and destabilize your plans. Then when things fall apart, they experience the satisfaction of both witnessing your failure and knowing they contributed to it. They do not need to succeed fairly when they can manipulate the outcome. Even in everyday interactions, the pattern is visible. Share good news and they minimize it or redirect the conversation to themselves. Share something negative and suddenly they are attentive, energized, deeply interested. It is as if your struggles fuel them. They ask questions, draw out details, and keep you engaged in your own discomfort. But when you succeed, they withdraw, dismiss, or dilute your accomplishment with subtle doubt. Over time, you begin to feel that your successes are insignificant. That is the psychological erosion taking place. One of the clearest signs is constant comparison. Narcissists maintain an internal scoreboard, measuring themselves against others. They must feel ahead, not through growth or effort, but by reducing others. If they cannot elevate themselves, they will attempt to lower you. If they cannot outshine you, they will take comfort when your light dims. This is why they spread rumors, engage in gossip, and take satisfaction in the misfortune of those they claim to care about. It is not random behavior. It is a deliberate survival strategy in a mindset where every success they witness feels like a threat. And here's the damaging part, because they cannot openly display this sense of satisfaction without revealing their real nature. Instead, they develop subtle methods to express it. A smirk they attempt to hide, a casual remark that cuts deeper than it seems, a strange silence at a moment when any normal person would naturally offer encouragement. Over time, you begin to notice these small reactions, and they start to trouble you. You begin to wonder whether the person beside you is quietly hoping for your failure. That uncertainty slowly eats away at the relationship from within, creating a sense of isolation and quiet suspicion, which is exactly the condition the narcissist wants you in, unsure, questioning yourself, and disconnected from genuine support. The satisfaction they draw from your failures is not just cruel or random. It is their fuel. It reinforces their sense of superiority, rebuilds their fragile control, and strengthens their hidden resentment toward you. It also exposes their inner emptiness. A person grounded in real confidence, real ability, and genuine self-respect does not need others to fall in order to feel alive. A narcissist does, and that hunger never ends. They will never feel content with one mistake or setback of yours. They will always look for the next failure, the next slip, the next confirmation that you are not above them. They turn silence into a form of psychological warfare. Most people think communication exists only through words, through discussions, arguments, or open dialogue. But with a narcissist, silence becomes just as powerful as speech. They use it to disturb you, to gain control, and to shift the balance of power without uttering a single word. This is not peaceful silence or thoughtful quiet. It is calculated silence. It is used with precision, like a weapon, intended to create maximum emotional impact. When a narcissist goes silent, it is rarely by chance. They withdraw communication not because they have nothing to say, but because they understand exactly how you will react. They know your thoughts will spiral, your anxiety will rise, and you will begin replaying every recent moment to identify what you might have done wrong. Their silence pushes you into self-doubt, as if you are being judged without knowing the charge against you. You are left questioning yourself repeatedly, wondering what caused the shift. This mental loop benefits them, because every second you spend doubting yourself strengthens their position. The silent treatment is one of their most common tools. They withdraw emotionally and sometimes physically, leaving you in a state of uncertainty. Hours may pass, sometimes days or even longer, without explanation. During this time, they are not confused about your feelings. They are fully aware of them. That discomfort, that restlessness, that urge for resolution, all of it feeds their sense of control. By refusing to engage, they make you chase them. They push you to seek even the smallest signs of attention. They lead you to lower your own sense of worth just to restore connection. What begins as their withdrawal ends with your pursuit, and that reversal is where they feel they have won. This silence also appears in the middle of conversations. You may be speaking sincerely, sharing something meaningful, and suddenly they shut down completely. Not with anger, not with argument, but with a blank and unmoving response. Your words are left hanging, unanswered and unacknowledged. This kind of indifference is deeply painful because humans are wired to seek recognition. By denying you even a basic response, they make you feel unimportant. They send a clear message without words, that your feelings carry no weight, that your voice does not matter. Silence is often timed with precision to increase its impact. After a disagreement, when most people would attempt to resolve things or at least discuss them, they choose to withdraw. Not because they need space, but because they understand how much you desire closure. Their silence stretches that tension, prolonging it until it becomes unbearable, until you are the one who gives in, apologizing simply to restore peace. In this way, they win without engaging in any real conversation, because their silence forces your surrender. Even in social settings, silence can be used as a form of exclusion. A narcissist may ignore you in front of others, refusing to acknowledge you while being warm and engaging with everyone else. This type of behavior hurts deeply because it signals invisibility. It sends a message to others that you are not worth attention. It isolates you not only emotionally, but socially, shaping how others perceive you. They do not need to insult you directly. The silence accomplishes the same result, often more effectively. What makes this tactic so powerful is that it exploits basic human psychology. Silence in close relationships usually signals that something is wrong, so the natural reaction is to fix it. The narcissist takes advantage of this instinct, turning your desire for connection into a tool of control. You begin to try harder, give more, compromise further, all in an effort to end the silence. Each time you do this, you reinforce their dominance, teaching them that silence will get them exactly what they want. Over time, this repeated pattern conditions you. You begin to anticipate the silence, to fear it, and to adjust your behavior to avoid triggering it. You start holding back your thoughts, minimizing your needs, and reshaping your actions, not out of care or mutual respect, but out of fear of being pushed back into that emotional emptiness. This conditioning is invisible from the outside, but internally, it reshapes who you are. You become quieter, more cautious, less certain of yourself, while they grow stronger through their silence. They isolate you by slowly damaging your relationships with others. This is one of their most harmful strategies because it targets the core of human resilience, connection. People grow, heal, and endure through relationships, through family, friendships, and support systems. A narcissist understands this instinctively. They also understand that as long as you have strong support, you are much harder to manipulate or control. So they begin to weaken those connections, often in subtle ways that leave you confused about what is really happening. It often begins with small suggestions, quiet remarks that plant doubt. They may casually question your friends, suggesting one of them does not truly respect you, or implying that another might secretly envy you. They might cast doubt on family members, hinting that they do not genuinely care about your well-being. At first, you brush these comments aside, but repeated over time, they begin to take root. You start to question the intentions of people you once trusted. As this doubt grows, you begin to withdraw from those relationships, which is exactly what the narcissist intends. The next step is creating conflict where none existed. They tell you one version of events and tell someone else something entirely different, placing themselves in the middle as the necessary link. You find yourself caught in confusion, unsure of who said what, unsure of who you can trust. This uncertainty pushes you further into isolation because you no longer feel safe sharing openly with others. They may also reshape how others see you. Instead of obvious lies, they begin with small distortions, half-truths, carefully chosen words that make you appear unreliable, overly emotional, or difficult. By the time you recognize what is happening, your image has already been altered in the minds of others. People who once supported you begin to act differently, more distant, more cautious. When you confront the narcissist, they deny any involvement, acting as though they have no idea why others have changed toward you, even though they have carefully influenced it over time. Another layer of this isolation comes from controlling your time and energy. They discourage you from seeing others, sometimes directly through criticism, sometimes indirectly through guilt. If you spend time away, they react with coldness, irritation, or subtle punishment afterward. Gradually, maintaining your other relationships begins to feel exhausting or not worth the emotional cost. So you spend less time with others and more time within the controlled environment they have created, where they remain at the center. If you invite others into your space, they create discomfort, making sure the experience feels tense enough that you hesitate to repeat it again. Gradually, your world begins to shrink until it revolves almost entirely around them. They place themselves at the center, not by enriching your life, but by quietly cutting off every other source of connection around you. Technology has only made this easier. They begin to monitor your communication, questioning every message, analyzing every interaction on social media. They plant doubt with subtle questions. Why did that person react to your post? What exactly were you talking about in that conversation? At first, it might look like harmless jealousy, but slowly it turns into constant surveillance. You begin to edit yourself, carefully managing how you interact so it does not trigger conflict. Without fully realizing it, you start isolating yourself in advance, handing over control piece by piece. The cruel brilliance of this method is that by the time you recognize what is happening, you often find yourself completely alone. The friends you once relied on now feel distant. Family relationships have been strained. Even co-workers may seem unsure about you. Isolation creates shame, and that shame makes it harder to admit how far things have gone. You may even start believing the story the narcissist has been feeding you, that you are difficult, that people do not truly like you, that you were never as valued as you thought. This belief traps you even further, because if you think no one else wants you, you cling more tightly to the very person who is breaking you down. Isolation is not always loud or obvious. Often it is quiet, creeping in slowly, almost unnoticed. A comment here, a suggestion there, a slight shift in tone when you mention someone else. But over time, these small actions create a wide gap between you and the people who once supported you. This is how the narcissist ensures that when they tighten their control, when they push the hardest, there is no one left for you to turn to. No one to challenge their version of reality. No one to remind you of who you truly are. They hide cruelty behind a mask of moral superiority. This is one of the most deceptive tactics because it allows them to hurt you while appearing righteous to both you and others. When cruelty is obvious, it can be resisted. If someone insults you openly or lashes out in anger, the intent is clear. But when cruelty is disguised as guidance, correction, or fairness, it becomes much harder to identify and even harder to oppose. The narcissist thrives in this confusion because it lets them maintain an image of being ethical while slowly breaking you down. In everyday situations, this might look like criticism framed as concern. Instead of directly calling you incapable, they present it as advice. They may say they are only pointing things out for your benefit. The words sound supportive, but the tone and timing reveal something else. Each remark is carefully placed to chip away at your confidence. Their aim is not your improvement, but your self-doubt, while making you feel as though you should appreciate them for highlighting your flaws. This creates a cycle where you absorb harm and respond with gratitude, conditioning you to accept deeper levels of disguised hostility. Their sense of moral superiority often shows up through constant judgment. They position themselves as the standard of what is right, intelligent, or ethical, while you are always seen as falling short. If you disagree, it is not treated as a normal difference of opinion. Instead, it is framed as you being misguided, careless, or wrong. This removes equality from the interaction and replaces it with authority. You find yourself trying to prove your worth by their standards that are intentionally impossible to satisfy. They may also use religious or philosophical ideas as tools. They reference higher principles, speak about values, or quote meaningful ideas, not to uplift, but to control. If you question them, they turn their response into a lesson about patience, humility, or forgiveness. They hurt you, then expect you to rise above it, turning your own values into restraints. Their behavior becomes masked as wisdom, leaving you unsure whether you are the one at fault for not accepting their perspective. In public, this behavior becomes even more damaging. They present themselves as principled individuals, highlighting their fairness, integrity, and concern for others. At the same time, their subtle criticisms of you are framed as worry or care. To outsiders, it sounds thoughtful. To you, it feels diminishing. If you react, you risk appearing overly sensitive or unstable, which strengthens their image as the calm and reasonable one. This dual image deepens your isolation because others may side with them, unaware of what is really happening. This tactic works because it directly targets shame. Shame is one of the most powerful forces in human behavior. When you feel it, you withdraw, become quieter, and try harder to prove yourself. The narcissist creates situations where their behavior triggers shame, but disguises it as correction. You do not push back because doing so feels like admitting fault. You do not resist because it feels like confirming their judgment. So you accept it, internalize it, and continue trying to meet expectations that were never meant to be reached. Over time, this repeated exposure changes how you see yourself. You begin to adopt their perspective, seeing yourself as flawed, inadequate, or lacking. You may even start repeating their criticisms internally, judging your own actions harshly, setting impossible expectations, and punishing yourself for perceived failures. In this way, the narcissist extends their control beyond direct interaction. Their voice becomes part of your inner dialogue, guiding your thoughts even in their absence. What makes this even more difficult is that their behavior often goes unnoticed by others. To the outside world, they appear disciplined, principled, even admirable. They carefully maintain this image, ensuring their actions are interpreted as virtue rather than harm. This makes it harder for you to explain your experience. When you try, you risk sounding unreasonable or overly emotional. Others may even defend them, reinforcing their image while leaving you to carry the emotional weight alone. At the deepest level, they imagine your downfall as something justified. This reveals a darker layer of their mindset, where envy and resentment blend with distorted reasoning. In their view, your failure is not just something they desire, it is something they believe should happen. They construct a narrative where your success is undeserved and your collapse is a form of balance being restored. This belief allows them to act without guilt, to justify their behavior, and to continue seeking the very outcome that harms you the most.